Sisters Jacqueline and Alexa Child are joining me this week, and I'm really excited because they've created something so awesome. So first of all, Jacqueline, Alexa, thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you so much for having us. We're really excited.
I can't wait to hear this whole story. So you guys created an app called Dateability, and I don't even want to say anything without you guys just sharing your story and this app and what it is. So let's start there. Tell everyone how this even got created, who you guys are, all that good stuff.
So Dateability is the only dating app for disabled and chronically ill people, and it came about because of my personal experiences dating as a disabled woman. And so I became disabled due to chronic illnesses when I was 14, and once I entered adulthood and started using the dating apps, I found that dating with a disability is really hard and intimidating and negative, just overall toxic. And I couldn't believe that there wasn't a place to meet people like me, and like the only places that it felt like you could meet other chronically ill or disabled people was like support groups or like clinical settings, and that just wasn't my vibe. And so we really wanted to create a place where people could meet others and connect and just really make dating an equitable experience for our community.
Wow, yeah, and talk about something that's going from your own personal experience and then trying to create a better situation, not just for you, but for others. So you have this experience. What was that like for you when you were dating and you were going out and you did have a disability? What was that experience like for you?
It was tricky because I have invisible disabilities. I mean, I appear totally non-disabled on the outside. If I'm fully clothed and just walking down the street, someone would never know I was disabled. So I had sort of the blessing and the curse where I could hide it, but then, like, what does that mean for when it is time to disclose? And how would I do that? How much would I tell? And so sometimes I would just really like nonchalantly mention it, and it almost always backfired and the person would end up rejecting me. Sometimes I would be totally honest and really tell them, I've undergone over 40 surgeries and this is my reality, and that would also result in rejection. And I did start dating one guy and he seemed to be pretty accepting, and then when he told his mom that I was disabled, she was not accepting, and she convinced him to break up with me and end it because she said she didn't want her son to have to live a miserable life dating someone with medical conditions.
Oh, and I imagine the turmoil that you went through emotionally because of that. Just, you have been the one who's had this lived experience. You're the person who's been in the entire situation the whole time. You know what it entails, and you didn't need people to tell you. But I can imagine that emotional toll that took on you, that every time you had to keep reliving it, was also hard.
Absolutely. And it really affected my self-esteem. I just became this like shell of a person. I didn't want to be curious or explore my surroundings. I was like, people put me in the box of being a disabled person, and that's where I'm gonna stay. And that's really like all I should be known for. And it was really hard, and it took a couple years, and it actually really kind of took the pandemic to get me out of that rut and just sort of explore and be more curious about what life looks like living with a disability.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Alexa, where do you come into the picture into this? Because from what I've read, you do not have a disability, but what's your role in all of this?
Yeah, I do not. I don't have a disability or a chronic illness, but I'm Jacqueline's older sister. I'm older by 4 years and 12 days, and so I'm very protective and always have been. And I think that protectiveness, increased when she got sick, and I saw her going through struggles that I had never witnessed before, with friends or other family members. We lived together after she graduated college. She moved in with me in Denver, and that's when she started dating and getting told these things and going through these experiences, and they were completely opposite from my dating experiences. Dating does suck across the board, and it's hard, but I never had to worry about the things that she was worrying about. Whether I would be discriminated against because of a diagnosis, or if I would even make it to the first date based on talking to me on the apps. And so it was sad to watch her go through this and to change and to, feel less than, and then to see her date guys who liked her, like, that were so out of her, like, she was way out of their league. They were out of your league too, but they did not deserve her at all, not worthy, and it bugged me. And then the pandemic hit, and I ended up losing my job due to COVID-related budget cuts. And Jacqueline was getting a feeding tube, and it made me panic a little bit about what her social life and especially dating would look like after that. And that's when I said, like, let's make this space that you've been looking for ourselves. No one else is going to do it, clearly, and so let's just do it. I'm a lawyer, so we can either create or solve problems, and I'm the latter, and most of the time. And so that's what we did. And when we planned it when she was in the hospital recovering from her feeding tube surgery.
Wow. Okay, so you are in the hospital, you just had your feeding tube surgery. You're thinking about, okay, what this lifestyle change is doing, but also at the same time you guys were like, how do we create an app to help other people?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. We Googled how to create an app.
I literally Googled how do you build an app, because I'm technologically challenged, less so now, but none of us have a technical background, so that was out of our wheelhouse.
Yeah, it was a really good distraction for recovery, and it gave me something to look forward to. It gave me this sense of purpose, and we really didn't know what we were getting into, but that was the start.
That's the best, low expectations. If you set the bar low, you're most likely going to be pleasantly surprised, or at least you won't be disappointed.
Yeah.
And that's where we found ourselves. This has taken off way more than we expected.
So then were you the first user on the app also?
It's really funny. Technically,
yes.
But it's throughout all of this, I've learned that creating a business is very time consuming, and it doesn't leave that much time for dating. And so I haven't been able to use it as much as I wanted. But it does feel different, like dating, because now I'm single by choice and I'm dating on my terms. And before, like Alexa said, like I would date anyone who wanted to date me. My standards were very low. And now I feel like I can be picky, and that's really important to me, and it's important for the community to have standards and to really just realize that they deserve the love that everyone else is looking for too.
Well, and across the board in dating in general, it's easy for us to be convinced that our standards need to be lowered due to the environment that's out there and what we see on social media. People are like, lower your standards, you have too high of expectations, or, well, that's normal. I remember when I was sitting in my therapist's office one time, and I had been cheated on in pretty much every relationship I was in, and I was like, so what I'm feeling is that I'm just gonna have to be cheated on, right? Like I just have to accept that as part of my life. And she kept repeating to me, no, but that was my mentality, right? And I think it's really sad in general in the dating space that we've created this environment where you should expect to have lower standards, and it's okay to have lower standards, when the reality is exactly what you're saying, Jacqueline, is especially with someone who's dealing with a disability or a chronic illness, that the exception is what we should strive for, not the latter.
Yeah, and people would always tell me, like, it would take someone really special to date me, basically. It was like a very weird thing to wrap my head around. I was like, it shouldn't take anyone that really special to date me, but I also get it, because we are weeding out people who will discriminate against you. But everyone deserves someone really special. I think that seeing all my friends get married, like, some people, they settle, and it's really sad to see. And I decided that, like, I am not going to settle for anything that I deem less than.
The aside, I'm 35, and so most of my friends are married or getting married or in long-term partnerships, and there's this societal pressure for me to settle down, and I'm single and working multiple jobs, and I just don't really have an interest right now. And I know that person will be very special when they come along, because it'll finally be like good enough for me, and like it'll fall right into place and it won't be hard. But I think that there is this societal pressure for women, even now, even in 2025, to get married, and then if you're still single, there's something like inherently wrong with you, and that's not true. But so I like could relate to that, but at the same time being like, no, stop dating these duds and let's like you need to date somebody in your league who is worthy of you, who is special, but not special because like you're so difficult to deal with. They're just special because they're good enough for you.
Exactly. And you do deserve that. And anybody who's dealing with someone like their perfect match is out there. And to convince especially this group of people that they aren't and that you should settle is mind-boggling to me. I will never understand that. I think everyone is deserving of love and a special love at that. So I love that you guys have created this space. Now, what makes the space on Dateability? Like, is there certain qualifications? Is there questions that ask? What makes it different from a Bumble or a Hinge? What are the differences in those apps?
We had that question when we first started building, right? Like, do we limit it to just disabled and chronically ill people? And then if so, how do we verify that? That's one, taking like really personal information, health data, and from like a legal perspective that made me nervous. And then also, I think that there's so much gray area in disability and chronic illness that, you know, there's some people who are like, I don't know, you know, if I'm considered disabled, can I join? So we just allow everyone to join whether they're disabled or not, you know, do a minor vetting process of every user to make sure that they're not predatory or they're not scammers, and everyone is who they say they are. The non-disabled users we have are about 7 to 10% of our user base, and they're allies, people with siblings who are disabled or their work, you know, they work with the disabled community. But yeah, I mean, I think we started that question, like that's the first question we answered. We just wanted it to be open to everyone. The other apps can be so toxic and superficial, so if you're not feeling the other apps, you can join Dateability, and that's, you know, exactly what we wanted.
Yeah, and we wanted to solve that problem that I had with disclosure and how to tell and when to tell someone about your chronic illnesses. And so obviously, like if someone is joining Dateability, they expect that our community is going to have or be accepting of disabilities. But we wanted to make it so that our users can present their chronic illness or disability in a really natural and neutral way. And so we created the Dateability Deets section, and it's just like a vague list that people can add to their profile, like their political affiliation or their education level. And we want it to be just a part of who you are and not necessarily like a medical chart, but just, just an extension of who you are and what your life looks like.
Yeah, so like when you select, I have a dog and also I'm a female, this is what I'm looking for, I also have this chronic illness. So it's like a statement rather than I feel like I have to disclose this information.
Yeah, exactly. People have really said that it's like takes all of the anxiety out of disclosing because it's just there and you can put it on your profile and sort of forget about it. And, you know, if more details come up down the road when you've matched with someone, you can disclose more. But it's just like out there and, you know, that it's up to the other users.
I love that so much. And that's so cool to know that there's an app out there in general too, because the apps can be very difficult in dating. I've seen very many stages of it all, and I've been on pretty much every app that existed before I got into my relationship. And it's cool to know that there's more of a, I would say, empathetic app in a way that it's more sensitive, more understanding, more open-minded. And it's cool to know that exists. And I think that's a space that a lot of people outside of even the disability, chronic illness community will love to know about, because dating's hard. And when you have at least a multitude of options, at least you can try different things. And maybe you're looking for the wrong type of people on one app, and maybe with Dateability, you can find a different type of people.
Exactly. And you know, right now, obviously, we're a smaller community that compared to the other apps, and we'll always technically be a smaller community, even though 1 in 4 people have some sort of disability in the United States, and it's the world's largest minority. Like, it's still a minority, right? But I think, from my experiences on like the Hinges and the Bumbles, when I would log on, there were so many options, and I'm not really like a grass is greener type of person, but I know people are, and so I know that like, you know, makes the apps toxic and difficult to navigate. But it still seems so daunting and overwhelming. Like it just felt like there were just so many options. It was like too many ice cream flavors.
I compare it like walking into a Forever 21.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Like it's overwhelming. Like you could go around the store.
Most of it's cheap.
I know exactly that feeling.
There's too much. Yeah, I agree. It is like that, like walking through like, I don't know, Goodwill stresses me out for the same reasons, because it's like there's just too many things. And I think that making, I look at my parents and my grandparents and the way they met, and they, married for decades, and our parents are still married. Smaller community was how people met back in the day before the internet. And so we're trying to recreate that, but make it accessible by, providing this app.
Isn't that so funny when we look at that? I mean, obviously, apps in general didn't exist and a lot more people met in person, but isn't it wild to think about that back in the day? Oh no, I'm going to sound like that person. But back in the day, people were meeting just by way of knowing somebody, and they got connected in a certain way. And now we have this existence where we're like, dang, we have to keep creating apps because nobody wants to talk to each other.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I think about like our grandparents met at a dance, and if they weren't,
And not like a school dance, like they were
in like their early 20s,
Yeah.
I don't know, like whatever the dances they had in the 50s, and like if they hadn't been at that place, like they would have never met. They would have never crossed paths again, and that's just so wild. And yeah, now like, I mean, I'm terrified of speaking to people, like going up to people and just who I don't know, and strangers, and that's just how it all used to be. And I wish I could be a little more confident in that and meet people online or offline, but
Yeah, but
online is accessible, and it's convenient, and I can do it from my pajamas on my couch.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask too, because it's hard in general for people to want to talk in person. IRL is like this, fantasy. We think that we'll talk and connect with people, and it's just really difficult, especially today for some reason. So, but is there an added layer of that for you with having the disability, where you just are even a little bit more shy and don't want to put yourself in those positions as much?
Yeah, I think it comes down to like both from like a physical standpoint, like if I am in a flare and I'm really tired and I'm my body is really hurting and I'm at home, like that obviously still gives me the opportunity to connect with people, and that's something I'm really grateful for. And definitely like when I go out, like, yeah, I mean, having a disability can really affect your confidence and your body image and just like your self-esteem. And so it does put that added pressure on to try to meet someone. And it's just like having to waiting for the other shoe to drop, sort of, is like when you meet someone.
Yeah, it feels a little bit better when it's just all out there and you don't have to quite as have that conversation.
Definitely.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll walk around with like hologram dating profiles like on our chest, and then we'll like, have your Dateability.
Yeah. I mean, I always say like I really would like to order my partner on Amazon, and I guess a dating app is the closest thing that I will get.
It very much is. It's that joke that you often see in comment sections where somebody's like, did you order that off Amazon? Where do I find one?
Yes.
Very much so. Now, Alexa, for you, I'm so curious this side of it where you did have the mama bear instinct, where you were protective over her and you were wanting to make things better for her and didn't know how. And this is a new avenue for you guys to do that. But what is that like, supporting someone going through that? Because I know there's a lot of people out there who are also in your shoes and trying to support, whether it's a loved one, a friend, however, maybe you have some insight to share that's from that perspective that people might want to hear or need to hear.
Definitely. And I will say Jacqueline didn't become disabled until she was 14. And so growing up, it wasn't like there's this thing called the glass child syndrome, and it's the child that's not disabled often gets ignored. And there were phases, in life like that, but I was an adult and I was in college, and I flew the coop and went across the country for school. And so it definitely changed, I think, the way I view Jacqueline's disability and my relationship with her. But I think communicating is like key. I don't know what Jacqueline's feeling all the time, even though I spend every day with her. We live together. But if we're on a walk with our dog, I will tell her, listen, you tell me when you want to turn back, because I'm not disabled. I can walk for miles, but as I let her, I don't want her to feel uncomfortable, and I don't think you ever feel uncomfortable telling me, okay, it's time now, or making sure that, she's up for it. If you're not up for it, like I can, take another friend. It's totally fine. And I think that that's really important, is asking questions. I think nowadays people are afraid to ask questions because they're afraid of offending somebody. I think things are really touchy, things are really tense, and I get it because, I don't ever want to offend anybody, but you're never going to know if you don't ask a question, and you're assuming is like the worst thing you can do. And so there's a way to ask politely, and if the person gets offended, you can explain that you didn't mean it like that, that you just want to know and understand. And so communication, whether it's your friend or your sibling, is, I think, definitely the best and the key part to, a relationship that's healthy and it's fun. And then remembering that people can have fun. I think that we're in Colorado, so people want to ski all the time, right? And so they don't like Jacqueline because she can't ski every weekend. But I'm not disabled and I love skiing, but I don't ski every weekend. And also, why do we have to do all the same things all the time, right? Maybe I love to hike. Jacqueline can't hike, so I hike. That's when I see my friends or when I go and get some alone time. And so, I think that there's other ways, and there's other ways we do have fun, and I think people forget that. And so just realize that you can work around people's limitations, and communication helps finding that workaround.
And I think that you brought up a really good point, is that chronically ill people have a lot of fun, and there is that paradox of if you're so sick, then you shouldn't be doing that, and you should be at home all the time. And there's a lot of judgment around that, and especially if you post it on social media. It's how can you possibly be disabled and have a smile on your face at the same time? That's what people hear all the time, and it couldn't be further from the truth. Disabled people are really adaptive. We are really just flexible and find things that work for us so that our lives are still fulfilling.
I love that, and I love that you mentioned that, because we like to put people in boxes. We hear somebody has a disability or chronic illness and we're like, well, you're over here. I can't let you be over here. And that's just not how anything works. You wouldn't want to be put in a box. It's oh, you're blonde. Well, you're going to be put in this box. Cool. Thanks for that. I'm fine. I can do things brunettes like to do. What do you mean? So it's an interesting dynamic that people do want to put you in a box, and you're not supposed to be. You are just as dynamic as anybody else. It just looks a little bit different, and understanding that those differences are actually really cool.
Yeah, we have hosted bar crawls in Denver, and a lot of the people who showed up were wheelchair users, and watching other people's faces at the bar, look at, this group of 20 wheelchair users, or we're crossing downtown Denver and there's 20 wheelchair users crossing the street. It is pretty incredible, it's hilarious too.
Yeah.
And we've had people ask what is this?
Yeah, they're what is going on? And we're we're just it's just a gathering, and seeing that disabled people party can make people uncomfortable. And I'm I truly do not understand how, if someone uses a wheelchair, that takes all of their desires away, and it's just so short-sighted. But it is really cool to see the communities come out and just really trying to bridge the gap between the non-disabled community and the disabled community.
Because it should be as one. That's the whole point. And that's what you guys as sisters are really beyond the app. That's what you're also trying to do, is say, hey, we can coexist. We should be able to coexist. Why aren't we? And it's bridging that gap that's kind of been missing. So beyond the app, I think that's incredible. Jacqueline, on the flip side of what I asked Alexa and how she supports you, how do you feel the most supported? Maybe it's from your sister, but also just in general, maybe it's from strangers or life or social media. It kind of can be all over the board, but I'm curious for you what that support looks like to you and what really impacts the most for you.
I think it's having people not necessarily believe me, but have confidence that I know what's best for myself. And that is something that a lot of people deal with, disability or not. But making sure that people understand I have autonomy, I can make my own choices. I have chronic illnesses, and I might not always make the choices that are healthiest for my chronic illness, but there's pros and cons to everything. And if I might want to do something that's really good for my mental health, but it's terrible for my disabilities. And just, having people trust me that I know what I'm doing and I can take care of myself the best.
Have there been moments, because I have sisters as well, and I know our spats are so much fun, especially when they're over. But I'm curious, between you two, have there been moments where there's just, you have these spats because you have to, because it's understanding somebody a little bit differently? So what does that look like in a relational standpoint too? Because I think that's also very encouraging to people to hear that maybe they're not alone in having those intense moments where it's like, you're not hearing me and you're not seeing me or understanding this.
Yes, we have had lots of moments like that, not necessarily like related to business, but personal. I mean, growing up, we were at each other's throats all the time. She's 4 years older, so that makes me the annoying little sister. And like when she was 16, I was 12, and all I wanted to do was be with Alexa, and she couldn't get farther away from me. And so I would tattle on her and get her grounded so she would be forced to hang out with me. But we definitely still have our moments, and they are very tense, where Alexa's like a professional fighter, and she's just great at it, and I am not, and I love to give the silent treatment, and that is like Alexa's biggest pet peeve. But it's like those things like just have to happen. Like if you spend enough time with someone, that's gonna happen. And we always get through it pretty quickly. A simple sorry fixes things.
Yeah, it's less and less as the years go on. Now we bicker more like an old married couple. Like, we were just home last week and we heard our parents bickering, and like the next day we started bickering about something with the app, and I felt like she wasn't hearing me, and then I was like, oh my god, we sound just like mom and dad. Like, this is insane. And we were FaceTiming with our grandma yesterday, and I think like not bickering, but like move, or like don't touch me, like get out of the way. And she's like, oh my god, you guys are just like you were when you were little. Like, nothing changed. So we definitely do bicker like that. The first year that we lived together, we definitely had bigger fights that were bigger. But I think the pandemic either broke people up or brought them together. And for us, it brought us closer together. We were literally stuck with each other all the time, and so we had to figure out how to coexist. And so now we fight a lot less. Yeah. But we have had our moments for sure.
Oh yeah.
Well, and that's all so normal. Trust me, again, as having 3 older sisters, I know exactly that dynamic. But even more so that you guys are business partners and you live together, and then there was like, you just had so many dynamics. So there's so much realness to that. So thanks for sharing. I know that's probably an odd question. You're like, I don't want to talk about our fights.
There's like, it sort of feels good because there's no one else we would be able to speak to someone else like that. And so we can be so open and honest with each other, and we know we'll make up, and it's great for the business. It's great for our relationship, our friendship, and we just start fresh every time, and it's totally normal.
Yeah, I've never told a coworker that they're really annoying, but I can, and it's over, and that's nice.
I love that. I love that.
It's too much.
What have you guys learned? Maybe it's about yourselves, or maybe it's about each other in starting this business, as you know, and it can be completely unrelated to business, or it can be about business, but there's kind of different factors here. So you guys can take that route, whichever.
I'll let you go first.
Oh, okay. I think that I would say that we've learned that like executing and just going for it and winging it is so invaluable, and that if you have an idea, you should just go for it. And that's something it's really scary, and it's intimidating, and you just have to do it and try and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm trying to still think about what I've learned, because there's been so much. I mean, I never thought that Dateability would take off the way it did. I always hoped, but I never thought that it actually would. And so that, that's something that I learned that together we can make a great team. I realized that we are different in a lot of ways too, that I didn't realize, and that we complement each other really well. I dream big and I've got a lot of ideas, but executing them is not always my thing. But Jacqueline's really good at that. She's the person that when we move, she wants to unpack all the boxes like the day we move. And so if I tell her, like, I have this idea, like, how do we go about this? she can get it done. I think, watching Jacqueline, who before this has never had a real job before, really come into her own. That's been awesome to see and watch her develop. For the first 2.5 years of Dateability's existence, she did all of our PR. We traveled a ton together. We also have never traveled like that, just you and me. Ever. We have our nice little routine now, so whenever we go with our parents anywhere, they like cause chaos. And we're like, because we have our routine down. But yeah, I've learned a lot about our relationship. All good things.
You just mentioned something that I guess I didn't realize. So Jacqueline, this is your first time working.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about that.
I graduated college in 2016, and then I got my master's online, and I had this whole plan of working in a children's hospital and being a child life specialist, and I was on my way to doing that, and then my health took an even more downward tumble, and it put all of my plans on what I thought was a pause, but it really just came to an end. I spent 4 years just really being a professional patient. I was at the doctor's almost every day, recovering from surgery after surgery, doing procedures, and there was just no way that anyone would even ever hire me because I was, to most people, I looked unreliable. And so I was just really trying to get my health in a more stable place. And so this has really let me feel like I'm a contributing member of society, which is something I struggled with, and it's something that I know a lot of disabled people who aren't working struggle with, and it sucks because it's all just part of the capitalistic mindset that you have to work to be contributing to society, and I wish I could change that, but that's a whole systemic belief. But this has really just gave me that purpose, and it feels really good to be my own boss and to make my own schedule and to know my own limits and boundaries.
And you're very dependable. I hope you realize that, she is. She follows through with everything. I'm not her keeper, but at all. And I think that's a misconception, is that I take care of Jacqueline. We take care of each other. We're sisters. We're family. But you are dependable, and so any employer would be lucky to have you. But Dateability's the luckiest.
Oh wow, that's so cool, and I'm just really glad that it all came together how it was supposed to for this job and for the app and everything for you. I know probably in those moments it didn't feel like that would ever happen, and to be here now, you're probably sitting looking back at the entire course of how things worked out, and you're like, wow, I wish I just would have known, so I could have not had to go through all of that.
Absolutely. I mean, I just the stuff I wish I could tell my younger self, and just it's okay, you'll get there. Everyone has their own timeline, and you gained some pretty important perspectives early on in life, and it all led me here.
Yeah, I love that. Now, is there potential plans? Say Dateability keeps blowing up, which that's the whole point. Are you guys hoping to also hire in that same realm of disability, chronic illness, and just hopefully employ more people?
Absolutely. We really want to contribute to the disabled workforce, and we know that people with disabilities are less likely to be hired, and there's still some really nasty policies out there that allow disabled people to earn less than minimum wage, and we just want to change that and really contribute to the quality of life and well-being of the disability community as a whole.
Yeah, the thought of hiring people freaks me out.
Yeah.
We're not there yet. I have to be a boss of someone. But I'm always bad cop. Jacqueline makes me always be bad cop. So if we have to fire somebody, I know it's going to be me who's going to do the firing. But yeah, that's our plan. I mean, we want Dateability to become a household name, like Tinder, Bumble. We want it to be referenced in TV shows and in movies, and just have people know what it is, and really destigmatize disability and intimacy, and destigmatize the misconception that disabled people aren't contributing members of society. And I think hiring them, whoever's qualified, is a great way to do so.
Oh, that makes me so happy. I assumed, and I know that that's future plans and all the things, but it's cool that you guys also have a vision for moving forward, because I have no doubt that the app is going to keep moving forward and it's going to be awesome. So it's cool that you guys are already planning for that. I do love to end the podcast on whether it's a quote, a piece of advice, motivation, or maybe something we just didn't get to that's really heavy on your heart. It's kind of how I always end these, and I want you both to share one. So, or if there's one together that you're like, we both feel this way and we both want to talk about this.
Okay. Well, I've been listening to the new Taylor Swift album, like
naturally, like all of us.
And she keeps talking about the song Opalite and choosing your own joy. And I think that that is a really important message for people. And that's something that I've always lived by is just finding the happiness and the joy and the humor in everything. I look for something to be happy about every day, even like passing a cute dog. I'm like, that dog is really cute and that made me smile and I'm grateful for that. And it's like not in a toxic positivity way, but more of like, this is like life is hard and life is tough. And so if there's a little crack in there that you can fill with joy, I'll do it. And so, yeah, I'd say like choose your own joy. There is joy in everything and it's out there.
Yeah, I think perspective is everything. But for me, I'm going to talk more about the app actually that, for listeners, we've got tens of thousands of users, several success stories. Our first Dateability wedding is in February 2026.
Ooh, so this is exciting. Hold on. That's exciting. I want you to keep going, but that's so exciting.
Yeah, and so that's what I want people to know. Because Jacqueline and I agree on the choosing the happiness and the importance of perspective. But I want to let everyone know that, we created Dateability and it's working. And it is successful. Our first success story dates back to the month we launched. We probably had 1,000 people on the app then. Now we're close to 50,000. And a different couple is getting married in February, not our first success story. And every time, we do some kind of outreach or press, we get more and more stories about, people finding relationships, and they don't always work out. Breakups, happen. That's normal. And they usually break up for a really, really common reason, like, oh, I wasn't over my ex. It has nothing to do with the disability or chronic illness that somebody has. But yeah, it is working. And yeah, first Dateability wedding, February 2026.
And shout out to the wedding, first of all. Incredible. That's exciting and a huge milestone. But more than that relationships, even if they don't work out, that you guys are creating an environment for people to have safe and welcoming relationships. And that itself is what you guys were trying to accomplish. And it seems like you're doing just that. So that's also something to celebrate and really awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, we're excited. We want, even if you don't meet your person on Dateability, if Dateability is that stepping stone, get your feet wet and go on some dates and figure out what you want and, who you are. I think that's perfectly fine. That's exactly what we're here for.
I love that so much. And I'm just really appreciative that you guys took some time and were sharing your whole story today. So thank you guys for being here.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And we will make sure you guys go download. I'm assuming it's on Android, Apple, all the things. Yes. Dateability is the app.
Yep.
All right. Well, go check it out. And hopefully you guys have some wild success stories that they can keep sharing moving forward in another Dateability wedding also in 2026. Because, 2025, we're a little bit towards the end.
Yeah, it's going to be quick. 2025 is also a bad year. Let's just wrap up 2025 and be done with it, right?
Deal. 2026, we're going to have one every month. That's the goal.
Yes.